Hi, everybody. Antonio Brown, one of the greatest football players in the last 10, 15 years, greatest in probably the latest generation, has filed for bankruptcy. It's a tremendous, horrible story about how he filed for bankruptcy. But I think this is a great lesson that all of us can learn about money in those financial lessons. My name is Jason Matthews. I'm president and CEO of Matthews Financial Insurance Solutions and Gibson Monroe Wealth Advisors. And today, we're just really going to just dive deep into what happened to Antonio Brown. And I think, like everything in life, this could be a really good lesson for all of us to definitely learn from during this challenging time for him and his family. So while we dive into it, let's really go into more about Antonio Brown. If you don't know who he is, Antonio Brown played 10 years in the NFL. He played for the Steelers, the Raiders, the Patriots, and the Buccaneers. He had a collective earning power of $88 million. $88 million. This is a guy who grew up in one of the worst neighborhoods in all the country in Liberty City. If you're not sure, know where that is, that's in Miami, one of the greatest hoods out there, very dangerous place, a lot of poverty. He worked very hard to make sure that he got himself out of that state of being in that poverty that he was in. And with that being said, now he bought a football team, arena football team. He did quite well on the football field, but when it comes to life after football, life after NFL, he really, really struggled. And we're going to just talk about those few steps. So what's the first step of how he really failed at? When we look at how he failed, the first thing was that all of us can learn from as these lessons was the financial mismanagement. He had tons and tons of excessive spending. He had a huge couple Lamborghinis. He had a huge house. And all those things really, really, really have hurt him when it comes just to life after football and even life during a period of time. Now, this is a lesson for all of us. All of us, it doesn't matter how much money you earn. It's about how much money you actually save when it comes to applying for our life. So we cannot have this super excessive lifestyle. One thing he probably didn't realize during this excessive lifestyle of his Lamborghinis and his home that he had was simply just the property taxes and how much that is going to cost him. That could be highly, highly expensive for him, right? He also, with his mismanagement, he bought an arena football team. Have you ever heard of an arena football team owner that is a billionaire? Yes, I mean billionaire. No, you haven't. None of us have. Well, we have heard throughout the past that there has been a lot of lower level football teams, lower than NFL, that have struggled throughout the years to make a profit and take money. And a lot of them have folded and everything else. So with that being, there was a lot of mismanagement on his behalf on things that he could possibly be doing with his money. Even with it, he's from Miami. Why the heck is he wearing this huge, expensive mink coat? This is not the 80s no more. Nobody wears mink coats. But you just tell he had a huge amount of mismanagement of his funds, right? And part of that mismanagement was, if you don't know the full story of him, Antonio Brown was just bigger than life personality. He was great. He was huge. Won tons of Super Bowls, tons of Pro Bowls, I should say. At the one time, people could see him the best wide receiver in NFL. But with that being said, he decided to quit in the middle of the football game, which is total financial mismanagement. That's like you quitting on your job today, right? That you decide to quit on your job today just because you want to, and without looking at the full scope of that picture. You don't know how you are financially wise to see if you are able to step off and eventually retire. And with that, that's part of how you have to understand your money. You have to understand you cannot just do things impulsively and decide to quit your job or your career like many of us do. We actually have to put together a game plan and a strategy on when is the best time for us to leave our job or leave our job, and put together a plan on what it's actually going to take, which takes us to step number 2 of this thing. You have to have budget and spending habits. He had horrible budget and spending habits, and many of us do. We might not make $88 million, but a lot of us, when it comes to money and spending, we have horrible, horrible spending habits. And part of that is part of his spending habits was paying for court cases. He had numerous court cases. Attorneys are expensive. They're not free. And all these court cases start adding up into his life. So one thing I tell everybody is cut back and understand where your budget is and understand your spending habits are and see where you cut back and what things you should not be spending. And one of those things, if you can't avoid it, is paying for attorneys. As soon as you pick up the phone and you say hello, oftentimes you're on the clock with them. right? So according to a couple of things with the lessons on budgeting and spending, besides that, importance of budget. I don't care how wealthy you are or how little you have. Everybody should have a budget, and everybody is on some type of fixed income. I love when I hear my older clients or people who retired say they're on a fixed income, and I'll be like, who is not on a fixed income? Anybody who's financially responsible are on some type of fixed income. Also, when we just talk about budgeting, right, we need to discuss how budget helps us maintain finances, right? If we're not on a budget, we can't let, even though we cannot be able to afford something at that time, it doesn't mean that we should go into extravagant borrowing money, especially right now where money is so expensive to borrow. So those are things that we definitely want to think about and consider for it. Part of that doing a budget is having a budget plan. Do you have a monthly planner? You should have a monthly budget of all the money you have coming in and how much money you have coming out all the time. Now, some of us might get away from that bad habit of make sure we have a budget, but we should always maintain that budget. I don't care if it's on an app, I don't care if it's a platform we use, or even penciling in. We should be sticking to some type of budget at all times to make sure that we're on track with our spending habits where it doesn't go out of control. We just spend, and don't know where the money is going. At the same time, at the next one is we have to have our financial professional team. When we talk about professional team, there's a couple people we should be looking at with our financial team. One is our financial advisor. Their second is our accountant. I always say, as a financial advisor, we are the financial director of our clients' lives. We want to make sure there's no gaps in the planning process for our clients and there's no overlaps of it. When you look at oftentimes what happened in this situation, he didn't have proper guidance, Antonio Brown, in his planning. Nobody told him what he could do or not do in excessive of it. He had 3 baby mamas, and 3 baby mamas is freaking expensive, right? And a couple of times he almost got threatened to go to jail because of the cost of child support. Unfortunately, he's not working no more, but yet he had over $32,000 expenses every month for child support. And I think that was just for one child as well. So what do professional advisors do? They inform you on what's the best decisions going forward and how to make the best financial decision for yourself. They also tell you how much risk you are okay with and what you're not okay with. Antonio Brown, he bought an arena football team you're no longer working, and a team that's not profitable. And you didn't have a game plan on he didn't have a game plan on what to make that company profitable. And he didn't know what the burn rate it was going to take to make that company become profitable, that football team, how much it would take. And because of that, a lot of the players were expecting paychecks and other stuff. And unfortunately, those checks bounced, and he simply could not make his payroll at those times. So those are tough decisions that he had to do. Also, your professional advisor helping you out with your taxes. They're giving you tax ramifications. As a professional athlete, whenever you play in different states, you're going to have to pay state income taxes in those states that have it. So you're in Texas, you live in, and there's no state income taxes. Well, if you go to California, you're going to have to pay state income taxes for the day you work there. And the same thing as New York. And if you're Tennessee, there's none. So you really want to make sure you have experts who are knowledgeable about what you're doing. Not just some random person or your mom or your mom if she knows nothing about money, but actually having professionals on your team help you make those good, sound decisions. They're going to tell you, hey, you can afford a Honda, but you can't drive that Lambo. They're going to tell you what's the best decision for you. And if you can't move for the Lambo, they're supposed to tell you. Now, part of having professionals on your team is being okay and finding people that you trust, that you feel you can be open and comfortable with. If you don't feel open, if you don't feel comfortable with telling them tough decisions, it can be very, very hard for them to adequately do their job at the highest performance. So you have to feel somebody that you feel you're comfortable being intimate with about what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, what things are keeping up at night as well, right? The next thing you have to look at is your investment strategies. It's the importance of understanding investments before you commit to money. One thing we do here at our office is, and I think all advisors should do, is our investment collaboration meeting. With the investment collaboration meeting, we talk about all the different investments that are out there in the world and for our clients to have a better grasp of the investments out there. No, it doesn't make them an expert on it, but what it allows you to do is really understand what yourself are getting into. You should know the time horizon of that money. How long until I can get my money back? Understand the liquidity of it. What's the risk of it? There's a lot of different things that could go into it. And when you have that, you could do proper asset allocation for everything that you're doing for yourself and for your goals and dreams and what you're trying to accomplish. And part of that is just having a strategy, a game plan, and a roadmap on how you're going to go back and take care of that. And oftentimes we saw that Antonio Brown didn't have it. He only been out the league a few years. He's not even 40 yet, and he lost everything. He said he had $50,000. He had 88 million was a contract, and yes, we know he still had to pay taxes. He had to pay his sports agent fees and all that stuff. But even so, 50,000 is a horrible amount of money to blow, especially if he has to live the rest of his life. And I'm not sure what skills he can to recoup that money down the road. It's very, very tragic of a situation. Also, when you have your investment strategists or your investments, we don't want to always invest. And they're going to tell you when you have a plan what investments to help you make those investment and planning decisions. You don't want to get the hot thing like the next NFT or that monkey picture that now is worth crap, or you don't want to invest all your money into the next Enron that fails. So you have to understand and make good sound decisions when it comes to your money and investment. And that's part of having a good strategy for yourself. And unfortunately, Antonio Brown didn't have a strategy. His strategy was Lamborghinis and baby mamas, right? And this is a tough lesson for him. But I think for any young person who's an athlete, or even if we're older, thinking about retirement, these are really great things to think about. I don't want you to be about to get ready to retire, have all your money in even in our employer companies, and it folds at the same time. Perfect example is look at the cost of Zoom, right? Everybody jumped on Zoom during COVID or Peloton during COVID, and now their stocks dropped 70-80%. And if your retirement was based off of that, that's a huge hurting, and a huge hurting of yourself, your stock, but more importantly, your dreams and aspirations. I always say one thing people don't talk about is age discrimination in the workplace today. How we simply don't hire people who have gray hair for jobs because we here in America don't value age and wisdom to a certain extent. Right. The next lesson for Antonio Brown that we all can learn from is managing our debts and liabilities. Now, when we talk about our debts and liabilities, we need to discuss how accumulating debt for him, that was a ticking time bomb, right? He got this huge house, he got these cars, right? And at the same time, he has his baby mom with these children, and that's very, very expensive. And it was okay as long as that money was flowing in. But the moment that the chairs dropped from musical chairs and that music just stopped, he was in a world of trouble and hurt. And that's in those court cases and everything else. So part of it is we have to understand how to properly manage our debts, manage our liabilities, understand exactly what we're doing for you to be in a better situation than that. Like I said, hey, you have a private jet, you're on a private plane. That shit costs instead of driving commercial, right? But you're not sure because you're not managing your debts. So those are things that he definitely needs to think about, and we all should think about. Now, we might not have tons of baby mothers, but we might have some other Achilles heels that's hurting us for reaching accomplishing our goals and our dreams and our financial aspirations that we should definitely think and consider about. Another thing we want to do is start really understanding and planning for the future. Antonio Brown did not plan for the future of life after football and how it looked. When we're talking about planning for the future, we're having a long-term financial plan. That house that he bought, he might not be able to afford it because of the property taxes and how much that was going to weigh on him after retirement. So when he worked, and like many of us work, there's going to be a day that we eventually retire on our terms or on somebody else's terms. What we want to do is make sure we have a long-term plan on how that will look like for our lives and make sure we can sustain our life. That is what true quality of life planning is, and that's what we specialize. Here's quality of life planning, where we step away from the game, we step away from our job, we step away from our career, we can maintain our lifestyle without having the day-to-day stresses of it and the whole thing coming down. So part of that is saving for retirement and for unforeseen circumstances, right? And making sure that we have that good to go, and also having enough for emergency savings. See, Antonio Brown failed to realize is the average NFL player is done after 3.5 years. And that 3.5 years is supposed to last him now to the age of his life expectancy, which might be 85 or 90. And he was at the top level of his career earnings. And then it freaking slipped down. And many of us might be at the top of our career earnings. And at those times, we have to take advantage of the situation. There was times that he simply didn't. He left the Raiders before a contract, a signing bonus. He acted full there. He acted full most of the time. And he just didn't take advantage of those times where he's really at his career peak and his highest financial earning years. And hopefully he can get it back but for many athletes and for many people, that never comes back around. So I think the one thing we have to do is make sure, one, we have a good long-term financial plan. Two, set aside money for unforeseen circumstances and set aside money for emergency. Things happen all the time, right? Also, another tip, stay out of court, right? For him, right? He had at least 3 six-figure civil judgments, all because he didn't want to pay his bills because he got in conflict with other people. They included a Florida truck driver that he had a settlement for $1.2 million, but he owed $50. Now, I'm not saying that he's totally broke, as oftentimes bankruptcy could be a way to restructure a debt, but it looks like he probably is with all those expenses that he did have. Another thing we should look at is how do we actually protect our assets? And part of that, he could have protected his assets, is making sure that we have proper insurances that could protect us when things happen that we don't think about, and also making sure certain assets are protected by having an LLC or title correctly or type of corporation or something that can really protect us when those things happen. If we do those things, we will be in a better state all the time. And just like Antonio Brown gave everybody the deuces on this, I want to give you guys the deuces and goodbye for this. But before I do that, make sure you subscribe to our channel for more up-to-date financial information, as we always are coming out with new information. Also, if you have any questions or comments, please let us know. What do you think Antonio Brown's biggest mistake was? And how do you think he could have overcame it? Yes, I know that he might have some mental health challenges, but that's where your family, your team supposed to help and kick in. And unfortunately, they weren't there for him as well. With that being said, my name is Jason Madison with Gibson, Monroe Wealth Advisors and Matthews Financial Insurance Solutions. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a good day.